interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Yo, it's Remember the Show. Slick with the flows, where the sparring can go. Who's gonna be on, man, you never will know. Guess you better tune in, cause we live from Chicago. Belal Muhammad, that's the king of the tweets. Jason Anik looks like John, step his hands to his feet. Every Thursday, we gon' give you a treat. It's Remember the Show, hit play and repeat. And retweet, and retweet, and retweet. And retweet, it's Remember the Show, hit play and repeat.
What is up? Episode 34. Remember the Show. Jason Anik joined by UFC top 10 welterweight Belal Muhammad. Dude, competing in the octagon this weekend, an absolute slew of former Remember the Show champions, former Remember the Show contestants. Dude, I don't even know where to begin. Great to see you. How you doing?
What's up, bro? It's good to be back. You're back from Vegas. I'm back from freaking Mohegan Sun, back in our homes. Feels good to be back.
Well, so you were running the stairs today, so still no news on the next welterweight opponent for Belal Muhammad?
Man, I'm like literally me and Magdi are going back and forth. We're both like agreed to literally through social media. I'm just waiting and hoping. I messaged Ali and he hopefully gets one back to me. I'm working next week's card, so hopefully I'll see Sean Shelby or one of them up front and try to get this thing booked.
Good. Well, anyway, nice. I'm glad you're getting back on the desk. They keep calling. They keep calling your number, so that's good. You know.
Yeah, maybe they see something in me. I'm just gonna. That means I just got to buy another suit. Whatever.
Well, they had that Bellator guy, Mike Chandler, on the set. Oh, well, I guess he's an Ultimate Fighting Championship fighter at this point. But, you know, I say you see a little bit of your shine, so I'm glad you got another call. But anyway, obviously there's a lot we want to talk about this weekend, a lot of layers to a lot of these fights, a lot of personal relationships with Belal Muhammad. But I want to pump the brakes a little bit and talk about last weekend a little bit. Just to let you in a little bit on sort of what my weekend was like, because it was pretty cool. So anyway, obviously we had the McGregor fight, but I stayed in Vegas for the following weekend for the Makhachev fight at the Apex. And so going to the fights at the Apex for me is, I think I maybe been there back in the day, but I've never been to a fight card there. And as you know, Joe Rogan had said, it's really a privilege sort of during COVID to be in those environments where no one was there. And there were sort of limited fans, but they brought me a headset. So I'm sort of listening to what John's listening to. So that was pretty cool to hear the broadcast. You know, Bisping and Felder were there with him. And just to sort of be sitting that close, for me, sitting that close, hearing like the grunts of the fighters, you're hearing the broadcast because there's not that many fans. There's nothing like being that close for me. So that experience was incredible. Just so many good fighters. So obviously we can talk about Makhachev, Miesha Tate, we could certainly get to, but it was a great experience being that close. I guess we can start with the main event. You tweeted something about Makhachev being great everywhere. Seeing him up close, I guess he's the least hittable fighter in the UFC in terms of statistically. He's the hardest to hit as well. Talk to me about the number 5 now lightweight in the world.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I saw a stat today. It was like 0.7 significant strikes absorbed. That was like nuts. And then like you could tell too, like he's very good at judging distance and avoiding punches and avoiding shots. And he got really good hands. How did it feel being over there seeing Coach Khabib in the corner? Like, were you close to him? Were you starstruck?
I was. And it's funny. My brother talking to him, he's like, I get so starstruck just talking to Khabib. He has this presence about him, you know? And for me, it's like, I've sat close enough, sort of close. And there's, you know, been around some celebrities, but it is different with Khabib. It's like, you know, Trump was at the last event. I've seen a lot of people, but Khabib is different. You're right. He is like a king walking in there. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it looked good. I'm looking at Islam and like seeing him and like seeing how calm he was, especially being in his first 5-round fight, first main event. Like everything worked out perfectly for him. He showed you. I feel like he showed a little bit of everything. He showed his stand up. He showed his grappling. He was very close to an armbar. I think it was in the second round where I felt like there was 10 more seconds left. He would have finished that fight a lot earlier. And I feel like Moises wasn't getting enough credit. Moises is a beast. He's a really good fighter. He's young. He has super good kickboxing. I mean, just because Islam didn't made him look bad, like it just shows how good Islam is. But Moises is a killer.
Well, see, that's the thing. And, John stole my thunder a little bit because what I get blown away going to back-to-back cards is just how many good fighters there are, how many good unranked fighters there are. I mean, even if we talk about this weekend, Adrian Yanez, Randy Costa, I mean, both unranked bantamweights. I mean, the list goes on. So Makhachev, he gets his due. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you want to, maybe you can talk about who he's going to fight next. But some of these other fighters on this card, I mean, so Billy Q, right? And just being close. So Billy Q. So I don't know if you saw, but a couple weeks ago, he had a huge gash. I don't think he posted it until after the fight, but a huge cut above his eye that he had to sort of heal. So he didn't even know if he was going to fight. So anyway, great performance by him as an underdog. He comes over to Dana after the fight and he's like, I think this is 5 straight for me in the Apex. Give me a big crowd,
Wow.
So that was pretty cool to hear him say that, but what a performance out of him, huh?
It's cool. It's funny that you say that. Oh, did you look at his eye? Cause I'm sitting here like, when you're seeing all this like excuses from Conor McGregor talking about, oh, I have arthritis in my ankle. I had my ankle taped. Like every single fighter goes into a fight injured. Every single fighter, there's not one fighter that goes into a fight feeling great. There's always something behind the scenes that people don't see that only your coaches know about. And guys really don't bring it up except for like once you lose, then it's like all the excuses start coming out. But like, It's cool seeing a guy that wins and then he shows it and then it's like you're not complaining about it because you just got to suck it up and you got to fight. It's either that or you don't fight. You call out, you pull out. And it's cool because that this happened, he wins, and then now the world sees like, yo, there's not one fighter on this roster that goes into a fight that feels 100%. There's not one fighter on this roster that doesn't have arthritis in his shoulders or arthritis in his wrist, a freaking torn cartilage somewhere. Like, seriously, like every single fighter had an MRI done on them right now that like none of us would be able to fight.
I believe it. So anyway, and another guy, another unranked fighter, right? It just the list goes on. So another fight I don't want to dismiss on that card, Miesha Tate coming back. An incredible human being. Her physique looked incredible. She looks different. Sometimes people tell I'm in the best shape of my life. No question at 34, whatever she is, she's in the best shape of her life. Certainly makes that division much more interesting, frankly, than even like an Aspen Ladd, fight coming up this weekend. Like Miesha Tate couldn't be more interesting to me to inject into that division.
Yeah. Like I say, sometimes a lot of people are saying that sometimes taking that 2 years off, it like refreshes your whole body and it like your whole mentality changes. Yeah. Oh, without 5 for her?
Yeah, it was 5 years off.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So anyway, that refreshes like your literally whole mentality. And then she was still involved in fighting. That was the cool part. She was with ONE FC. So like you're sitting there watching fights all the time, obviously. I'm sure she was still training, getting rolling in here and there because like you never lose the love for the sport and love for training. That's like always the fun part. That's the thing I'm gonna miss the most if I ever stop fighting is like training in the gym with the boys, hanging out with the guys, and just getting a roll and everything. It doesn't have to be sparring or anything crazy like that, but it's just going in there and just having fun. That's where you're having fun. Like there's no stress in there. It's just getting a good sweat on. And she looked good. Like it was one of those where she was kind of like in a different era where you're like a lot of the time girls back then, they were either good in one spot or not good in another spot. Now she like everybody's good universally everywhere, all these women. And she showed that she got better as well, where her stand-up didn't look bad. Her ground and pound looked really good. Her takedowns were still there. So it's going to be interesting to see who they give her next.
And you and Bisping talking about cardio, right? And so when I look at Miesha Tate in that type of shape, the confidence that comes from cardio in your back pocket, right? And so to see her physically like that, it just tells me that she knows, and I know it's a 3-round fight, but still to know that you got that cardio for days. To me, she looked in much better cardiovascular shape than I had seen her even in some of her, real big fights in the past. So I'm excited to see what's next for her. So Nixick comes over to her corner after round 1. And these are other things about being in the Apex, right? And dude is like, he might as well be hanging out with his kids. He's like, what's up? He's like, welcome back. Right after round 1, right? Just so happy. Just welcome back. Right. That guy, man, it's like all these coaches, right? It's like even Punahele Soriano facing Brandon Allen this weekend, working with Nixick. It's like you see these guys when they're connected to these coaches and you get to sort of see it. For me, getting to know these coaches has really sort of given me knowledge of the fighters in a different way,
knowing like he's one of those great coaches that like slows everything down and like just calms you down. A lot of the time where you'll have coaches that'll go crazy and like he's very good at understanding which type of fighter he has. Like Miesha Tate's a very good veteran. And I mean, we were just talking about it before where you saw me with my boy Adil Benjalani who just won last weekend. like he's still kind of on the come up. So he doesn't have that many fights. He's not a veteran in the game yet. So you have to talk to him in a different way. You have to yell at him to make him understand things. But that's me understanding him. That's we train every day. So Nick's very good at understanding his fighters, knowing what fires them up. Like when he talks to Dan Ige in the corner, like that fires me up. Like the way he burn the ships, burn it, and you're like, you know what's going to trigger your fighter, and that's what he's very good at.
You know, another thing about Misha, and this sort of just occurred to me, but it's like the money in professional sports just goes up and exponentially, right? The money's much different than 5 years ago. Who knows what type of conversations she's having with Dana? It's like, Misha, you come back as a fighter, she's going to make bank, whatever she does. In some of these big fights, come back for some nice paychecks, Misha Tate.
Yeah, and she's so good on the mic too. I mean, even at the thing on the desk, she did an interview on the desk, and she sounded very good. So I'm sure that she's probably going to get an offer or something to be one of those ladies too.
I'm sure. So anyway, I don't want to dismiss Makhachev because I'd like to find out where you'd like to see him go next in that division. I think there's room for him up there.
The thing that I love the most is right now that the rankings changed, then they put him at number 5. Like he jumped up 4 spots, and that was like the perfect thing because now it's like now the guys are going to be calling him up. That's the most beautiful thing because, like I said, he's one of those guys that nobody wants to fight, and they always have that excuse. I don't want to fight downward. I don't want to fight downward. Well, I'm assuming that all those guys that he passed up probably turned them down and with that same excuse. So now that he moved up to 5, now those guys are looking up to him, and now that's why you see guys like Dan Hooker calling him out when literally like a year ago Makhachev was calling him out. You don't hear his name. Like Dan Hooker's acting like I don't know who that guy is. But now that he's number 5, now you see Hooker calling him out, but I understand where Makhachev's coming, where he says, I'm only looking upward. Like I called you out, you didn't respond. Now you're on a 2-fight losing streak. I'm gonna call out Michael Chandler on an interview as he's sitting there on the desk, and Chandler, he was very good at like brushing that off a little bit. But like it makes sense. I would want to see that fight. Dos Anjos is calling him out. Like they're going back and forth with it. I'd rather see either those two, either him against Chandler or him against Dos Anjos, because they'll show a different side of him. I think he's going to have to bring out the dog in himself to fight either one of those guys.
So my microphone's blocking. You know that I got your face on my.
Oh, nice. There we
got some Remember the Show merch. How about that?
Come on, people, check it out.
I got to move the microphone. That's on me. I got a t-shirt too, but I just want you to know I got your face on my chest. Look at this guy. Is this John's brother? Hey, yes, I'm John's brother, but no H in John. Jon. Come on. How long you been watching the UFC? Jon. What's up, Cody?
There it is. I get your face. Well, and the suit I just have lying around. I don't know, Bully. You just don't have your suits lying around. I mean,
I was like, what are you wearing?
Is yours purple? Do you have a purple suit sitting around?
Hey, he asked you, are you wearing is that a tie around your neck? Bull
yeah. I
just
all right.
I'm embarrassed
for the occasion since we got a doctor coming on the show.
Yeah, well, and I botched trying to tie it without looking it up. So I was just like, screw it. I don't know. Work from home life, Jay knows.
There you go.
It's all good.
But I want to know, Bully. So how would you matchmake the top 155 pound division? So obviously Poirier, Oliveira, but below that, what would you do? It's mostly unbooked.
With that, I would do Chandler against Gaethje because that one's just going to be fireworks, and then I would do Dos Anjos against Makhachev, and then I'll have Beneil Dariush waiting on the sides as a backup for the title fight. I feel like before any of them other guys, Dariush should be next in line for the title or waiting as a backup in case one of those other 2 guys get hurt.
Perfect. I say no more. I agree with all that. So we're going to do 2 Bics, and we might as well let's just get to the Bics, Cody. Let me just see that green on the screen whenever you get a fine chance. Let's just get to the Bics right now. Oh, he's tying his tie. Part of the reason I want to get the Bics over with is because there's so many fights on this card that I want to talk about. So it's like I know we're going to talk about Dillashaw Sandhagen, so it's part of the Bics. So let's just get rolling on the Bics. We're going to do 2 Bics. We're not going to start with the main event. We'll start with Elkins Minner. We're going to pick 2 fights. So Bully, 7-3, 93, 64-3. Your percentage chirped up a little bit last week, 58%. Did you pick Tate on the show and then Renault on the Bics, or am I imagining things?
No, I picked Tate.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked.
Oh no, you know who picked Renault? That's where my confusion was. Max Payne Griffin.
Did it?
Yes,
Jay,
Max Payne Griffin. He was she's been out 5 years. You would have
to be an absolute boob to have picked Marion Renault.
Well, No, right.
Come on.
No, I hear
guys.
you.
Like,
No,
let's
no,
go.
it was Max
Come
Payne
on.
Griffin. Max Payne, he put out, hey, she hasn't fought in 5 years. That was his
Follow Max
argument. So,
Griffin.
yeah, I was giving Max a little love. He's remember the show. But anyway, that was my confusion. It wasn't you. All right. So, Darren Elkins, Derek Minner. They both sound like fighters. So, Elkins, right? 37 years old. He had lost 4 in a row, albeit to some good competition, Volkanovski in there. But submission win November 7th over Luis Eduardo Garagori. So, Minner. And Cody, you can probably correct me here if I'm wrong. If I'm not mistaken, he loses on Dana White Contender Series. Then he goes back, defends the DCS, I get Dynasty Combat Sports, goes and defends his featherweight belt there, comes back to the UFC, gets choked out by Grant Dawson, and that now he's won 2 straight. Is he Glory MMA with James Krause, I believe, Derek Minner? But anyway, this guy, he's been around for a long time. He's 37 professional fights, which is just amazing to me.
How am I going to correct you when you're dropping Dynasty Fight Championships? I've never even heard of
Well,
it.
I looked up this guy today, and it's just fascinating to follow some of the careers because I've certainly heard of Derek Minner. He has 37 professional fights, not a ton of them in the UFC, apparently. But either way, he's a slight favorite here against Darren Elkins. Belal, who do you have?
Man, I gotta go with the damage here. Damage. He's fought the best guys out here. Like you said, he was 1-4 in his last 5, but like he's fighting the best of the best, and he's one of those guys where whenever you count him out, he just freaking comes back. And honestly, he's one of like we were talking about it earlier too. We're talking about cardio, and he's that guy that literally always has in his back pocket where he's never gonna break before his opponent. And Derek Minner is one of those guys too that. He gets in a lot of brawls, and it's a lot of movements, a lot of action, and like he has a lot of fights, but I think that Darren Elkins is probably just a little bit better everywhere. Minner's pretty good on the ground. I want to see how these grappling exchanges are going to go, and if Elkins takes him down, and if Minner could get back up or throw up a couple submissions. But I think Elkins is just going to be too much of a veteran for him and be smart and control the pace. And I think that anybody who fights Elkins, unless you have that great knockout power or you're just freakishly strong, Elkins is going to out cardio and outlast you.
Well, and also too, to bring up your point about the competition, it's like when you've been in there with champions, it can build you up. All right, so we got to just get to this main event. There's so much to begin. The return of TJ Dillashaw. I talk about Corey Sandhagen literally every Thursday night. I mention this guy's name, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of the content out there. TJ, just after that Aljamain Sterling loss, it just seems like he's just a different cat. The savage, the warrior mentality, warrior spirit. He's just we want to be a straight up killer in there. I guess I'd like to just get your overall thoughts generally. TJ's side of it, Corey's side of it. We can get to the BIC later. Talk to me about what's a just riveting main event.
Yeah, this is huge. This is a great fight. Stylistically, if I'm just talking about that, like it's a great fight. Obviously, Dillashaw has the advantage in wrestling, and that's kind of like Sandhagen's weakness is wrestling. But he's very good at judging distance. And when you're trying to come in and he's throwing a knee up the middle or the up kick up the middle or an uppercut, like he drops you and he finishes you. And we saw the last fight against a tough guy like Frankie Edgar, and he threw that flying knee out of nowhere. And for a guy like Dillashaw who's been out for 2 years, and he hasn't seen a fight, he hasn't been in there with the fight, he hasn't felt what it is to be in there, and he's not going to have the energy of the fan or the crowd to pick him up. It's going to be a fight with no crowd, so maybe different for him. He'll probably it's not like common territory for him. And then like you have to bring it up, obviously the whole EPO thing. Like how is he going to fight without it? Like I mean, he could say all he wants that I was not on it only for that fight, yada yada. And then he had a couple of excuses where like, bro, put all my past opponents on the EPO, and we'll see what it's honestly when he talks, it just pisses me off.
I hear you. Well, there's a lot to talk about with this fight, but that transition with the EPO, I think we're in the presence of greatness. We're going to be joined by a doctor here that's gonna drop a little knowledge on EPO because I think some of us don't know everything we need to know here. That's a nice visual, Mr. Mero.
Okay, that's beautiful.
That's hot.
All right, Dr. Boykinav.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing, sir? Honored to have you in my presence. This is my co-host, Jason Anik. Thank you for coming on. I know that you're a busy guy. You're doing a lot of things. We just want to understand what this EPO is, and if you could explain to us and more, like what is EPO in general?
First of all, Belal, spasibo. Thank you for having me on the show. This evening, we're going to go over a vast array of different chemicals and substances in which TJ has administered through his anus. And first, let me give you a little background on where and how I studied. I am a urologist from Lomonosov Moscow University. But I also am a sports medical expert. I've worked with athletes from Russia, Ukraine, and Romania, to name a few. And today I studied TJ's case for well over 10 years. He's quite the subject. The man is a furious athlete. He was very furious in the cage, and he caught a couple of bodies while he was in there. Henan Barral and Cody Garbrandt, to name a few. So let's go over my first study. So as you can see here, this is TJ on steroids, correct? You can see here that when he's on the EPO and the PEDs, his cardio was immense. His strength was like an ox, and his endurance, it was submaximal. You can't get any better than this. His rage was none other than just it was just furious. I didn't even have enough space on the board to put how much rage he had. But the number one thing, the telling cause of all PED use is this right here. I don't know if you can see it up close, but
we can see
SOB, aka size of balls. The more PEDs he used, the smaller his nuts. Here, they were only a half-inch in diameter. And as you can see, this is on the sauce. This is when he's on the sauce. This graph right here. So when Jeff Nowitzki first entered the UFC and started working with various athletes, the tests were very minimal. He himself individually went to different athletes' homes and asked them to take their penises out and let me see your balls. And so when he first went to TJ, he said, "Let me see your little balls. I'm sure they're little." He couldn't believe it. Once again, before TJ got caught, his nuts were small, only a half-inch in diameter. I mean, a man of his stature, and the fact that he must use steroids, he must have had small balls to begin with. But as you can see here in 2021, he is off the sauce, and they only grew about a third in size, an inch. So his nuts are now 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and to say the least, those are some small balls. And the conclusion that I've concluded was TJ has had small balls his whole fucking life. He needed the steroids to enhance his ability to win in the cage. Now, my studies are basic, experimental. They're clinical studies. They're epidemiological studies. They're cohort. They're case control studies. And they can also be further sub-classified as either interventional or non-interventional cross-sectional studies. So my point being is the amount of time that I put into this, it's unquestionable that TJ, he just had small balls his whole life. And, it's a shame. What other questions do you have?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, another question. So will we see a difference in TJ's fighting now, minus the genital area?
Well, you'd have to go backstage to really see a difference. But I think we shall see him slow and tire fast. If he doesn't get Sandhagen the Sandman, if he doesn't get him out of there in the first round, I think he's in trouble. My glasses, I'm so excited. My glasses are coming up here. I can't even, I'm so thirsty as well. This case with TJ is just astronomical. When Jeff Nowitzki first came, the Golden Snitch, they call him the Golden Snitch. Jeff Nowitzki. he's one sneaky bastard. That guy. He caught Lance Armstrong. He caught TJ. He's caught numerous athletes around the planet. And let me tell you, that golden snitch, they should call him the fucking platinum snitch. But I think TJ, his scally skin, he's shredded to the bone. I've seen athletes, they work hard 3 times a day. They train, and they don't look nothing like this man, TJ. He moves, he grooves, he's moving in different directions, and it's something I've never seen before. But this weekend he's going against this Sandman, the scary boogeyman, and I think that he's got the challenge ahead of him. He's got the challenge, to say the least.
So another good point you brought up is how shredded he is. So him being that shredded right now, do you think he's on something, or is he just natural now?
Well, let me go back into my study real quick. E minus 4 plus pi equals MC squared. What was the question again?
I said he has a lot of abs and muscle right now.
Yes, TJ, he's quite fit. That boy, he works out in that garage with the other boys that are very fit. Those boys, they just, they come and they just look so nice in the cage. And, sometimes I wish maybe I could have a body like that, but shit, I would never do steroids. My boy Sergio Pettis, he went in there, 1, 2, 3, 4. He killed that other guy, whatever his name is, TJ's friend.
Juan Archuleta.
Right, Juan Archuleta. That man's physique that's one fit Mexican boy. I don't know what they're doing in the garage. Like I've said, I studied in Lomonosov Moscow University. I've never seen anything like it before. And I think TJ's abs, it is not a good indicator of performance. When people make weight, they have abs, and TJ, he's a muscular man, but I think the Sandman will show him the boogie way.
Good question from one of our viewers, Derek Lewis. I know that you're a professional in the general area. Like, what makes Derek Lewis's balls hot?
Well, you got the man like Derek Lewis. He is the size of him. He is proportioned to TJ. He's quite a mammoth of a man, and he comes from the area of Texas in the South. It's very hot there. He's a big African man. They are reportedly some cohort studies I've done in the past. They have bigger balls than most other men, and being in Texas, you fight in a cage. His balls are humongous. Those balls are probably reaching the degrees of over 100 degrees. And I could see why his balls have gotten so hot in the past. And, you can't blame the man for trying to air his balls out.
You got anything for him, Jason?
Well, I was really nervous when I found out we were having a doctor on the program, so you've made me real comfortable, Dr. Boykinav. I appreciate that. Just curious, the punishment for TJ. The punishment for TJ, given what you know about EPO, you think the punishment fit the crime, Doc?
Well, he received a 2-year suspension. Correct. Well, he killed 2 men. It was basically capital murder. So he's got about 2 more life sentences to go. That little prick that he is. I've been studying for years, and this case is none other than this is a historical case here.
Have you seen any other fighters that you may assume could be on steroids? I'm not calling anybody out, but like, you had that keen eye.
Well, let's be honest. I would say 99% of the fighters before USADA, those pricks, they got away with everything. There's a couple of guys that are floating around, and I don't know how you look like that year round when you train. I see guys train 3-4 times a day, and they don't compare to these other subjects that we study.
So when Nate Diaz says everybody's on steroids but me, do you think that he's truthful or is he lying?
I think he makes a valid point. As we know, Nate is quite the druggie himself. As a pothead, he's a pothead. But he makes a very valid point. For me, I suggest a little heroin in the morning. At nighttime, during the midday, you do a little cocaine for a little pick-me-up. And then at night, a little more heroin to bring it back down. And that's what I would suggest if you want to recover well.
Well, honestly, this was very informative and very excellent things that I'm hearing. If you have anything else for him, Jason?
I don't. I mean, it's the face smash segment we do. It's amazing. I feel like I've seen this dude on a face smash somewhere but I don't know.
No,
but it's just what
Cody,
I don't think so.
You've never met me before, Cody.
The accent's incredible.
Excuse me, Belal. I just have one question for you, Belal.
Yes.
And excuse me, Belal, but how big are your balls? Are you on the good stuff?
Well, thank you, Dr. Boykinav.
Oh, you're just going to curb the question. You're just going to dismiss me like that.
I mean, if someday if I'm in Russia and we ever meet and you can do an exam and maybe you could help me out and you could check them and see what you think, but I appreciate your time.
Spasiba, Belal, and Jason. I was calling you Cody before. I don't know why I did that. I'm sorry. My brain, it is moving at 1,000,000 miles per minute. And, I'm Spasiba again. Thank you for having me on the show. It was nice. Hopefully, TJ learns a little lesson. Maybe the Sandman will teach him one this weekend. We shall see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
No, thanks. Spasiba.
I love it. Dude, I love his head movement, man.
Man, that guy was amazing.
You got me good. You got me good. I decided to ask the same serious question that I would ask the doc, right?
That was a good question, though. That was amazing. Dr. Boykinav, anybody ever wants to find his work, it's on Netflix. You guys can check out his ebooks on the web. Boykinav, spelled right there on the thing.
Yep,
so if anybody wants to check them out. But we'll get back to the fights this weekend.
I love it. Yeah, maybe we'll talk a little seriousness about the TJ fight coming up. So anyway, yeah, let's spin it right back and get serious about this fight. So Corey Sandhagen is one thing that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. Everyone talks all day about how Corey has trained with TJ before, but so has TJ trained with Corey. Right. It works both ways. Right. So TJ's seen a little bit of Corey up close too. And also too, I give Corey Sandhagen a lot of credit for taking this fight. Say what you want about the drugs and all that stuff. You're talking about certainly a good athlete in TJ Dillashaw, certainly who's someone who has some ability in the octagon. And, Corey obviously wouldn't want to sit around and wait a year, but he could have waited for the winner of Jan Sterling if he really wanted to. So I have a lot of respect for Corey Sandhagen for being the savage that he is and taking this fight. A lot of people think maybe it's an easy fight for Corey. He's facing a former champ who accomplished a lot in the UFC. If it was all drugs, that's one conversation. But I would assume you would agree with me that Corey, has better be, ready for this opponent here.
Yeah, it's you're in a tough spot where it's like for Corey, I mean, there's really not much to gain from it. Obviously, it's to beating a former champion and a guy like TJ Dillashaw, but then like you already have all them built-in excuses already for if he goes in there and lights him up. He kills TJ Dillashaw. Then it's going to be people saying, well, TJ Dillashaw had 2 years off. Well, TJ Dillashaw was off the juice. It ain't the same TJ Dillashaw. So it's not like Corey's going to go out there and say if he loses to him, well, Corey doesn't belong in there with these type of guys. Yeah, he can't get over that one hump. Wrestling is his weakness. He needs to work on his wrestling. Maybe it's blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's blah, blah, blah. There's you're really not a lot to gain from a fight like this because it's tough, especially fighting a guy that's, like I said, 2 years off and you had it's already built in. People already have having these excuses for Dillashaw. Like literally every single question this week was, so how are you going to feel off the juice? How is this off the juice? This guy was always on the juice. Do you think it's gonna be the same guy? Do you think and you have to keep that in your head that I'm still fighting a killer out there. This guy's a former champion. He's beat some of the best guys in the world. He knocked out Cody Garbrandt twice. And you can't go in there thinking that he only knocked him out because he had juice in him. He only knocked him out because he had EPOs in him. he has talent. Obviously, no matter what, like this guy is good everywhere. He has skill, and you can't sleep on him at all.
Absolutely. And, go ahead, Cody.
Well, so I was just going to say this is one of those fights where Sandhagen's newfound kind of aggression, or however you want to call it, really needs to come out in this fight, because Dillashaw is the kind of guy who he is so ultra competitive, like as Dr. Boykinav said, that he is that dog. Like the second he walks in there, like he is a nasty motherfucker, and he's just going in there to rip your head off. And that's we saw in the Cody fights. We've seen it time and time again from him. But does Sandhagen present the same problems that a Dominic Cruz did? That's a matchup that I was kind of more interested to see, would be a Sandhagen and Cruz. But Bully, you're not on the desk or anything like that. Do you have an official pick yet?
Yeah, my official pick is going to be Sandhagen, man. He just looks so good recently. And for me, it's about guys that momentum is a big thing right now. And coming off knocking out a veteran, a legend like Frankie Edgar with that huge flying knee. Obviously, for him, he hasn't had a lot of cage time because that fight was like less than a minute or first round. So it's not like he's getting a lot of rounds in the cage. So I think it comes down to just Corey. I feel like he's at a point right now since that Aljamain Sterling fight that he's had 2 back-to-back huge knockouts against a guy like Moraes and a guy like Frankie Edgar. And both those guys, I know obviously they were quick fights, but when you're training for guys like those, like you're having to do training for wrestling, you have to do training for striking. And both of those matchups that he just had were very comparison to a guy like TJ Dillashaw, where Dillashaw is going to shoot on you, Dillashaw has striking, he's going to grapple with you. So I feel like the camps that Sandhagen has just put back-to-back on that, it's going to be enough for him to take Dillashaw out.
Well, and let me play devil's advocate. Sorry, Jay, to jump in.
No, you're good.
So you alluded to something earlier where you're saying that Dillashaw wasn't out for the 2 years. I mean, he had shoulder surgery in amidst some of that. So, maybe he's only been training for a year and a half, a year. But like fighters always say, the time that you get better is when you're not in camp. And, maybe it's different for every fighter. I'm sure it is. But is that maybe a factor here where TJ Dillashaw has spent the last year and a half getting better, improving different skills, training with killers, like you said, Juan Archuleta, Cub Swanson, plenty of guys with them. Do you think that we're going to see different ripples and different changes from TJ, or do you expect to see kind of the same guy?
I mean, Dillashaw was always one of those guys that was very smart, had very smart game plans. He had good coaching. So, like,
if anything, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those things where also it could be a negative that he was out those 2 years, because he's obviously one of those guys that overtrains. Every single guy that ever trained with Dillashaw says this guy pushes it to the limit. Like his excuse was, I need to take EPO because I wanted to cut down to 25 and my body was breaking down. So like maybe his body's broken down now in those 2 years because he hasn't been able to fight. So he's just been pushing it super hard, helping these guys out just to get that feel, because there's no other feel like being in that cage. So like since he couldn't have that feel for 2 years, maybe he was going extra hard at practice. Maybe he was sparring a lot harder. And he's one of those guys that I know that sparred hard a lot in training. Like you heard stories of him getting knocked out at practice or knocking somebody out at practice or injuring other training partners because he's going too hard. So if he's one of those guys those last 2 years that was sparring hard, not taking the time off of healing your body up or anything like that, maybe it could be a negative thing that he's actually out and training hard during those 2 years.
Well, and also too, I mean, it's a fight, right? So no matter what all this is beforehand, you know what I mean? They could catch each other and one guy one guy almost wins in the first round and the other knocks him out in the second round. Interesting. You see your boy Rafian Stotts was brought out there to work with Sandhagen, which I thought was interesting. I guess he's got a lot of 155ers out there, but not a lot of guys the size of TJ. So Raf, I think that it seemed like that was real cool for him.
Yeah, that was like a perfect guy to bring out. And I know that he came down, worked with Sergio Pettis too at Rufus Sport, and he brought out another guy that's a lot of people don't know about, but he's a 5-0 kid, Christian Rodriguez, who's fighting for the CFC title in a couple of weeks. So yeah, like he's putting the work in. He's bringing out the right guys, I feel like, to mimic a Dillashaw or bring you that style. Rafian Stotts, I don't think there's a stronger wrestler than him at 135. Like I wrestle with this guy. I use this guy for wrestling just because how strong he is. So I feel like Sandhagen's, like you said, since that fight, like he knows what he needs to do. His mentality has changed. Seeing what this guy posts, like you could tell he's getting in the right frame of mind. And I just love that about him. I love following him because he puts me in a certain spot where I'm like, dude, I need to save this for my fight Because if this didn't get me hyped up right now, my fight week is going to get me hyped up.
No doubt. Well, and I guess for me, overall, my sort of theme with both of them, you obviously never know what goes on behind the scenes. Well, you know more than me with the UFC in terms of what fight was offered, who really wanted to. But for both of these guys to take this fight, to me, it's what it's all about. You'll take anybody. You know what I mean? Let's go. You know what I mean? And so both of them, it's like you could argue TJ, maybe give him a little softer opponent coming back. Nope. He's fighting the best, man. I mean, other than fighting for the belt, you are fighting the best in the division if you're TJ. And I could argue with Sandhagen, it's like he could sit back too. So I love it.
Yeah, I could respect that. I've heard that Dillashaw, they offered him a lesser opponent. He said, "No, I want to fight the best guy." I think they wanted him to fight for the title, right? Coming right back, and that whole thing happened with Aljamain and Jan, and he didn't want to wait, so they wanted to give him like a tune-up fight, and he said, "No, I want to fight the best guy you got out right now." And he fought. Like, you could respect that. Obviously, he's a competitor and he wants to fight the best guys. And I mean, like, he's at an age now where it's like, yo, I want to get that belt back. And he didn't lose a 35 belt; he lost a 25 belt. So he needs to come back and prove he has a lot. He has a lot to prove this fight. He has a lot to show people that he doesn't need them drugs, and he's fighting a killer to prove that type of thing.
Well, and I heard that he's been limping around this week, so he might have stress fractures going into the fight. Happens all the time.
You got inside sources? Are these true, or is this Boykinav talking to you?
Yeah,
sources.
All right,
I can't say that they're sources. So, well, Dr. Boyk, I can't name Dr. Boykinav as my source. You just outed him. Thanks. I get killed. Russian mob at my door. Thanks a lot, bully. Thanks.
There you go. So a couple other fights I want to just get to quick.
Oh my
quickly.
God, yeah.
So before we get to your boys, right? So Adrian Yanez, Randy Costa. So this fight, right, in the bantamweight division, which has been moved up to the main card. I guess for all the MMA Twitter folks out there, I'll give Booger Beard a little love. He put out some tweet recently tonight just about how those guys having good energy and liking each other, all their positive sort of buzz is probably part of the reason they're on the main card and provided this opportunity. And you talk about it all day, about the presence on social media. And these guys really have created a following. And it's probably part of the reason they're on the main card this weekend.
Yeah, honestly, they did it the right way. I feel like, and they're both very cool guys. I met Costa in person, and we've had Giannis on the show, and like, you can just tell they're both down to earth and just like very good kids. And to see how they interact with people on social media, and to hear that story from Giannis saying that like he had John Jones message him once on social media when he was not in the UFC, and like just to get a reply from John Jones, it like changed his life, and he got so excited about it. And that's literally how I used to be, where I'm like, oh my God, this guy. And even still, like if I get like a Joe Rogan or somebody, I'll like message my brother, yo, Joe Rogan liked their thing. I sent it to you guys. Joe Rogan liked his post. Maybe he's tuning into the podcast because it gets you excited. And like, these guys literally will respond to anybody that messages them on Twitter and things like that and interact with them. And it just makes you more likable, and it makes fans want to tune into your fight. And people are literally mad that they were on the prelims, and Twitter spoke and UFC listened, and they heard, and they moved them to the main card. And that's a beautiful thing, honestly.
So Yanez is about a 2-1 favorite. Yeah, Cody. Yeah, Mystic Black MMA. What's up, buddy? So he's giving Cody Merrill Producer of the Year. Cody is the director of this program, right? Cody, you gave yourself a little bump from the producer. He's the director of this program. But anyway, so Yanez. Yeah, exactly. So Yanez is about a 2-1 favorite over Costa. I know we're not picking this fight. To be honest, I don't know as much about Costa as I do Yanez. Yanez, when you do big things in the UFC, Vegas seems to pay attention. So I thought this fight might be a little closer on paper. Yeah, what are you? Okay.
I've seen Costa's really good striking, very good hands, very good. He has a couple head kick knockouts. He doesn't have a lot of experience. I think he still has less than 10 fights, but the kid is good. And obviously we've seen Yanez. He's coming to the UFC and put on a show, especially not just because he looks like Masvidal, but dude got amazing boxing, amazing striking. To me, it comes down to if anybody's going to implement any grappling in this fight. Both these guys, they both have good hands, both striking. I think Yanez has the advantage in boxing, but I think Costa trains at a great gym at Sanford MMA. And they're going to put on a great game plan. He has great training partners down there. So it's going to be interesting to see who could implement their game plan and if he could take him down. If either one of these guys is going to try to do grappling, because you don't want to see these guys go in there and box. And then if maybe being too friendly with each other is going to mess up their mentality. Because obviously sometimes when I fight guys and they come up to me before his fights and they shake hands before the fight, I'm like, why is this guy trying to shake my hand? Why is he so nice for it? I fought Jordan Main, and his mom came up to me, grandmama came up to me before the fight and like shook my hand. I was like, "What? Come on, dude! I'm supposed to hate this guy."
That's a tactical move. I like that. Soften you up a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, these guys are like very friendly. They've been talking to each other on social media for like months. So it's going to be like, man, is that going to make one of these guys lose their killer instinct? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The over-under on the rounds is 1.5 here, I believe. Ooh. I saw that. So that's interesting. I was thinking, they're going to both want to, maybe there's such good friends, try to get a little fight of the night and just brawl for a while together. That's the thing I always wonder about. It's like, I know you can't do that in combat sports. It's ridiculous, but some of these guys slug it out for a while. You can make nice 50 G's.
Both shake hands. Hey, no knees, no elbows.
Right? Exactly. All right. So it's a perfect way to end the show talking about the middleweight matchup that I'm frankly, I can't imagine what it's going to be like for you watching it. I know you're close with both guys, Punahele Soriano and Brendan Allen, both friends of the program, both guys that I've gotten to know a little bit since being sort of close to you and working on this show. And it's just so weird. They're fighting. They both have, it's a huge spot for both of them, just huge fight for both of them. So I know you're not going to pick this fight, but talk to me about your boys, what it's going to be like watching this. You've known them both. You're pretty tight with both of them. Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, it's one of those fights that I got like super mad that they fought, that they got each other. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, why did you guys do this right now? Because they're both super young. They're both monsters. And like you could build both of them up a certain way. And I don't want one of them to lose this fight and then all of a sudden they're back down. Because they're both on hot streaks right now. And two of the nicest guys, most genuine guys that I've ever met. And I train with both of them, actually. I train with Brendan Allen a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But Puna is just like one of those guys you meet, like seriously one of the nicest guys in the world. But they're both so good everywhere. I think it comes down to Puna, man. He just got dynamite in his hands. And he comes out to kill every single time. Brendan Allen, he's one of those guys where sometimes he fights super smart, takes you down. I think he has a grappling advantage with a lot of these guys in the middleweight division. He's a lot stronger than a lot of these guys in the middleweight division when he takes it to the ground. But he likes to bang. He likes to throw hands. He got that Louisiana boy in him. I think that him training right now at Stanford MMA, he's training with a lot of good guys right now, and it's making his game become better, become smarter. Man, I can't pick it, but yeah, like I'm like when Dana White literally said the fights to watch that you might not know about. He literally put the Giannis fight and the Puna fight, and like he's not lying when he says those two fights are going to be the honestly they're going to be the best fights of the night. Like besides the main event, obviously that's going to be amazing just because the Sandman's on there. And it's going to be an exciting fight, but like these two fights, this Puna fight right here, man, this could be like a main event. This is like my main event where I'm looking at like, dang, I do not want to watch this.
Yeah, and like it's like I'm watching Puna. It's like you want to watch him put his opponent to sleep. But when the opponent is Brendan Allen and you want to watch Brendan Allen do his work on the ground or whatever and finish something, you don't want it to be Puna. It's like I've thought so much about this fight, and it's interesting. I talked about watching you fight was a little certainly butterflies in the stomach for me. It won't quite be that, but it's almost like look away stuff a little bit. Like it's
dude, right? Like I want to close my eyes and just like I want to close my eyes, but I want to watch it because I know how good it's gonna be.
I hear you. Well, and
Nixick, honestly,
he pushed out some tweet about the power in Puna's hands, just being a little bit different. And when you've been around Ngannou in those environments, and you're talking about Puna like that, I just but also I talked to John a lot, and he just talked about how good Brendan is, and just how good Brendan's been for a long time, and faced some real tough competition, and how young he still is. It's weird. I didn't intend to talk about this fight and be like frustrated, but the more you and I talk about it, it's like, man.
Yeah, like why did you guys book this fight for? This is so stupid. Like, give Brendan Allen, Francis Ngannou. I'd rather have that fight than this fight right now. Like, you're pissing me off right now, Sean Shelby, McMahon. What are you guys doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we got to just root for what we were just talking about. Root for a 3-round banger and fight of the night for both guys, and it vaults them. Where they both sort of don't take a step back.
I mean, and like you said, both of them are super young. I think Brendan Allen's even more younger than Puna. But like he has so much experience. He fought some of the best guys in the world already. So that could be a big difference too, because he has that experience. And Puna, I mean, I think he's 2-0 in the UFC, and both of them were, I think, first round knockouts. But seeing a guy like that who even fought in the Contender Series and he got a decision and he started crying because he didn't want a decision. And you're like, man, he's like literally the nicest guy in the world when he's not in the cage. But then when he's in the cage and he's crying because he got a decision because he wants to kill somebody in the cage, you're like, whoa, what kind of switch you got? What are they putting on you right now?
Right. And also too, I mean, working with, I know I talk about Nixick a lot too, but for a young fighter to be in that, Ian Parker made a point just about, he sort of trusted that Puna's takedown defense, working with Nixick, that might be a real big focus. And if that is that, if he can,
Puna's a wrestler. Puna's literally a wrestler. I was cornering Lou Taylor in PFL, and me and Puna got some rolling in and wrestling in, and it's like, for being a big guy rolling with him, I'm like, there's not a lot of guys that can flow roll. It's a lot of just guys know what flow roll is, but it's like just being able to move where you're not like stiff and you're going for submissions. And it's like the first time you roll with somebody, and usually when you're going with somebody for the first time, like you don't want to look bad, or you don't want to you want to go a little bit harder to prove that you're better. And at that time I was in the UFC and he wasn't, and like literally he was like one of the best guys I could roll with, because he didn't have nothing to prove. It was just to go. And like I said, he's such a cool kid. And I was like, man, you're a 185 pounder. You don't feel like it. Like, you move like a 55 pounder, but like, you're so strong and good. So, man, I'm excited for this fight.
I am too. And it's certainly a good opportunity for Allen if he is to get the win over a great opponent. But I'm excited to watch, but might be one eye open, one eye closed. Either way, good luck to both of those guys. Good luck to everyone on the card. Go buy some Belal. Go buy some merch with Belal's face on it. I got to move my mic out of the way. I can't even figure this out. But anyway, episode 34. Remember the show. We're still rolling for the welterweight Belal Muhammad and Cody Merrow. I'm Jason Anik. Join us next Thursday night. Thank you.
Magni, I'm coming.